My name is Paweł Małkowiak. I'm CEO of Solidstudio. Today I'm in London at Connected Kerb's office, and I've got pleasure to meet today with Ben, CTO of Connected Kerb. So welcome. We've got Benjamin Laval here, head of digital product, and also Santi Barbat, lead software engineer. And today we'll be discussing the journey that together we took to migrate the charge point management software. And before I pass the voice to you guys to actually explore this topic a little bit more, some highlights. Basically, the first contact Solidstudio and Connected Kerb had was in the late 2020, so 5 years already, quite a journey. Ben, you joined in 2021, the late 2021, and we basically been discussing this topic for, give it or take, 2 years, I would say.
Yeah.
And in the early 2023, the decision was made, the planning started, and we kicked off the development work in October 2023, right? So even though the initial journey took a while, again, we are in February 2025, so again, it's like 18 months later, and we are discussing the successful project of the migration. So this is what we are going to be talking about. I think it's important that in the December we successfully concluded this project. So 9,000 charging stations migrated to Connected Kerb platform based on Solidstudio licensed CPMS. This is, let's say, how the agenda looked like. So Ben, any comments for this?
Well, I think that's a great intro, Paweł, and it's really great to sit down with you and talk about the really successful project that we've run, particularly in the last 12 months for migration. But as you say, 24 months in the cooking and nearly 5 years in the strategizing overall. So I think it's a fantastic milestone for us, enabled by Solidstudio, and one that's really exciting, setting the business up now for a really exciting and technology-driven future. I think in my own history, when I joined the company, we had very few charge points. We had an incumbent that we're very respectful to, was a very good starting platform to get the business running. But the time really in those few years before we could start the build was really around making sure Connected Kerb was there from a funding point of view, from a resources, and bringing in some fabulous talent that we're privileged to sit down with now. But also making sure all of the operational expertise was ready to receive such a program, and then ultimately make a successful migration. It's testament to the team that we're through that process, but we've also now been able to augment that platform with our own software left and right. And I think that the spearhead for that for me is the smart charging feature in the app, which really offers something back right off the bat from this migration for users in terms of getting a cheaper charge in a location that they find useful to their home, and one that hopefully we can continue to build and maximize efficiencies for them. So yeah, it's a very exciting moment for us to be through the migration, and now it's about looking forward together.
Fantastic, thanks a lot, Ben. So yeah, today I prepared some script to actually go through it and discuss the migration in general. Basically, my first question is why to migrate? Basically, there is the risk factor, of downtime, the risk of actually letting the EV drivers down. This can be lengthy process. Like in our case, it took like a year of work to actually complete it. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to kick off the discussion and basically ask the question: why did you want to migrate in the first place?
Yeah, well, perhaps if I start, if I mention, and it'll be the obvious one, I think first of all is commercially. There was a moment in time where our scale would reach a point where we needed to make a decision to bring technology close to home, bring more in-house. And so very traditional build buy debate. And I've handled a few of these in my career, but it became very obvious where that price point was, particularly given a lot of licenses evolve around socket numbers. And we in our growth curve could plot that almost to a diary day when we should have made the transition. So that set the clock ticking at the end of that sort of commercial point to maximize the opportunity. So it was then really a scenario of strategizing that with the board as to how long it would take for build and migration to catch that moment in the business. And we've come inside the plan to maximize the commercial opportunity. But I think that will be fairly obvious and users will know that. I think more interestingly, and the one I'm excited about, is the control of the data and the quality. And I know something you, Ben, have been particularly sort of taking the efficiency of.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the key things for us as we were like moving to 9,000 sockets is we found ourselves constantly creating operational processes around the software that we had, and because that wasn't customizable, we were sort of taking longer with these operational processes or putting processes in place which aren't optimal. So through having our own software now, the custom development we've done on top of that, we've managed to build our own software based on our processes, based on how we want to work. So I think that has been a key reason we wanted to move across. Sometimes it's the big things, but often it is the small things with data quality, as you mentioned, Ben. So enforcing certain actions at certain stages in the flow, in the commissioning process, to make sure our data is accurate, and all of this stuff has a really important effect when you're at this size, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So Ben, you've mentioned the commercials. Can you elaborate on this a little bit more? Like why? What does it mean that you wanted to wait to the certain scale? Like, do you want to have the capital expenses adjusted or explained to the board? Does OPEX play important role in this equation? Maybe you can elaborate on this a little bit more.
Yeah, I think absolutely. It depends on a particular financial structure in any business as to when that moment is. But it's the difference between moving very, very quickly and having very little dependency on your own in-house technical capability and building a team, and people change, people move around. Being able to manage even just a Scrum team needs a certain level of maturity within any company. But to operate a charge point, you can subscribe and do that the very next day on a lot of those sort of more standard software as a service offerings. What we really focused on was to make sure that, having gone through those maturity levels, we then had a partner in our tent that gave us some control over our software, from security, from scalability, all the sort of natural things you need as a software company, but also gave us access to some real expert skills to keep us at the front of the build phasing, rather than having to go away and read the OCP textbooks and come through a journey which many people have done. So the cost of entry is much lower working through this particular relationship, but enabled us to bring in some real experts, like Santi, to think about how do we augment that, and as Ben said, make it our own in terms of our processes. So we've been thinking about integration with other tools we use. We're a Microsoft shop, so thinking about augmenting ticketing, the use of AI to ease usability, even building simple flows that ease the sort of overhead of the day-to-day mundane, if that makes sense. And then, as I mentioned in the intro, there's part around energy management as well, where we can really focus on what that means for Connected Kerb, and not be bound into some sort of vanilla type offering that's really similar. And that's something, another really real differentiator as well, is we reached a point around 2020 where our own offering from the incumbent provider was identical to other CPO offerings. So it's very, very difficult to differentiate and bring your own DNA as a brand to market if you're capped within a traditional offering. So it's a bit like, I always compare it to Microsoft Word, fantastic platform to get you started, but it does put you in a box with everybody else. So very capable, very good commercially to start from, but there comes a point in time where you want to sort of augment with your own fonts and your own processes around it. So this is sort of entry.
I think to add as well, I think we've come from where we're at now. We have a severely reduced OPEX costs, which has become critical to profitability and all of those points as well. So yeah.
Excellent, guys. So now that we determined why to migrate, especially for the large CPO as you are currently, there is 9,000 charging stations under management. For sure, you had to have discussions about the risks, how to migrate, what is the plan. From my experience, you can either go big bang, so basically try to migrate everything at once, or go into iterations. So Santi, maybe you can elaborate on this exercise especially. What was the approach and what were the main milestones in the process?
So yeah, basically we wanted to make this migration process as smooth as possible to our users, which is what brings value to the business. We phased it out the migration into a couple of different phases. to make sure we were going to the right direction, and we weren't experiencing any downtime for our charge points, to like make sure the experience was smooth for our users, which is the most important. Are the most important aspect for us.
Sure.
Really.
So do you think Big Bang is more risky or less risky than integrations?
we got this discussion at the beginning with
Yeah, I think it's
Ben.
definitely more risky. Yeah, I mean, if they have a smaller number of sockets, I think it's feasible. I still wouldn't recommend it. But we took quite a long phased approach, specifically because we had so many different types of chargers on the network. So I think it depends on the CPO themselves. If they've got all one asset and they're all one type of charger, maybe doing a few and then a few weeks later doing the rest is okay. But I think, yeah, you need to sort of look at your network and.
Yeah, it might be even safer if you have the same charge point on your network to do it just one off.
Yeah.
But for us, it was like we thought it was going to be safer to do it, in a phased approach, where we did a couple of the same model of one charge point one time, then another, and another.
I think
To make it smooth.
I think also often forgotten about is our clients as well. So they're used to a certain software experience, they expect a certain level of features, and we needed the time to build the documentation, do the training, and go through their migration as well, which meant phasing was the right way to go, and we could do it in a very controlled way. I think all of them have been very receptive to the new way of working, the reporting portal, all of that has gone smoothly.
Sure. So Ben, you've been running the process from the planning to successful end. We've mentioned OCPP migration, which of course was one of the key milestones, but for sure we can discuss OCPI migration, other roaming if there are any, migration and training for the operational team. So maybe you can elaborate a bit more what it takes to migrate the charge point management software for a CPO with 9,000 charging stations.
Yeah, so firstly we had to kind of look at the network itself and split it up into sort of groups of charge points which need certain functionality to migrate. And then in doing so, we were able to sort of calculate which charge points were in which phase. So an example of that is we have over 10 different charge point models on the network. Some of those we had to do some integration testing with, so they fit in a certain bracket. And we had to reintegrate all of our public charge points, for example, with our OCPI partners. We have over 10 OCPI partners. So any public charge point goes in that kind of bracket itself. So we had a lot of different brackets of like which charge points would be in which group. So therefore we had lots of different phases, but yeah, that's the kind of approach we took. And specifically the OCPP partners and the OCPI, fortunately Solidstudio's core platform is very good in terms of these protocols and implements it as to the book as possible. So it's made that process a lot easier, and we collaborated a lot with the Solidstudio core team to integrate those third-party providers into the system. Lots of the OCPP manufacturers were already tested, which was great, so we could get started with those pretty quickly. But we did leave the majority of our non-connected Kerb charge points till the end of the migration. And then the OCPI partners were all very receptive to the migration itself. So that's something, as we came into the project, we're like, well, could that be an unknown? Could that slow us down? But when we discussed with our OCPI partners, they were all very receptive, very pro migration, because they have done it before, they understand how it works, they understand the benefits. And yeah, we thank those partners for that, and that made it a lot smoother as well.
Okay, thanks a lot. You've mentioned a little bit cooperation with Solidstudio, so of course I'd like to elaborate on this a little bit more. Because we are working for the last 2 years together, the core team from Solidstudio together with you guys on a daily basis. So if you don't mind sharing some insights, what are the most important areas of working together? or maybe lessons learned, and maybe some advices for other CPOs how to approach this kind of collaboration. Santi, maybe you can start on the software side of things. If we can go technical, that would be amazing.
I think the collaboration has been really smooth from start to finish, and that's why the project it's been a success really. Like otherwise, the outcome wouldn't have been like this. But like Solidstudio has really good expertise, and you guys really understand how these protocols works, which make things easier. Sometimes, or some of CPI partners, the implementations are not great, so you need to adapt and stuff. But working with all this expertise makes things easier for sure.
So it's not just software, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
software is not enough in this domain.
The whole project management has been really good as well, thanks to Ben and the guys on your team as well. So I think it's been a really positive experience. For sure, there will be things that we can look back and maybe look to better, or plan better. There will always be, but I think it's been a really good experience so far.
Great, thanks. Ben, any insights from your side?
Yeah, well, the collaboration.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the most important thing when working on a project like this is really up to work with the team in the first phase to understand your ways of working and ownership, accountability, common things like RACI metrics and stuff like that. So that's what we really focus on at the start. We have a team of developers at Solidstudio. 3 of them are called Mihal, and then we've got some others as well who have all been great, and we've had a lot of communication with the platform team as well. So Bartek and Christoph in the core team who have helped with the OCPP and OCPI testing. So yeah, we've had access to a full suite of experts in Solidstudio, which has been very helpful, made the process a lot smoother.
Fantastic, thanks a lot, guys.
Just to add there, we to have some shout out to the DevOps team as well, as we've adapted the whole system to work in Azure, which I think is a big milestone as well. And that was pretty smooth from something that we did at the beginning of the project, but was pretty smooth as well, and everything now is working in Microsoft Azure. So
that's true. Well. We unified the cloud,
Yeah.
So basically now everything is Azure based, not just AWS as used to. So definitely that was a huge improvement for both of the organizations. Okay, guys. So thanks a lot for the insights. Now I'd like to make a statement that it was most likely the biggest migration in the e-mobility world ever. So any key takeaways ways that you'd like to share or comment on? Feel free to treat it as you go. So Ben, maybe we can start with you.
I think for me, and I believe it's probably a good chance it is the biggest in EV so far, because of the size of network, scale of users, daily revenue, all of those things. But we should fact check that for sure. But,
there is a question mark in the end.
Yeah.
The biggest migration ever.
Yeah. But I think that's incredibly exciting and a real testament really to where the industry is at the moment across all EV, but transport and energy combined. So we're seeing a lot more digital enablement. We're seeing a lot more integration across different partnerships. And I think for us, it was so key, as I said, is one was de-risking and creating a CPMS on our instance on Azure that we could then scale and build from left and right on our full business, our full end-to-end processes. Has gone very, very well. But I think it's really interesting to Ben migrating the sockets with the team. As I said, in the same time, every day more users, every day more revenue, every day increasing complexity in terms of uptime, ticketing, fault reporting, taking a whole organization with you with also new starters and educating them on what's possible. It really has been a phenomenal 24 months, and to do it with very few issues, or let's say without any showstoppers, any P1s, whatever metric you want to use, I think is testament to the collaboration really. And as Santi said, the developers have been underpinning it over the last 24 months, and Ben's coordination of the whole program really. So I think it's a real bold piece of technology. I'm fiercely proud of it, and I think we should both be, we all are.
Yep.
So yeah, I think when doing it on this scale, I think The most important thing, which I imagine could be overlooked, is having a really good understanding of how people use the tool. So you want to have the technical understanding, obviously, and how to migrate the charge points and how to integrate it with other systems, but also having the good operational understanding of how the tool's used. So our tool's used by over 200 users, whether that's our clients, sort of like sub-operators, or our internal operations team, our external call care, and understanding intimately what every person does and all the other processes that feed off that, all the data systems which might feed from it, makes it a lot smoother process, because you've got to like retrain all these people, right? So you've got to, they've got to go through the process of managing 2 systems at once, because we did the phased approach. So they have to have sympathy and understanding of why we're doing the migration. I think something we also did throughout the migration is, look, we understood that it was going to be an area of change for the business, which is going to be quite difficult. Change is always difficult. What we wanted to do is not just migrate, but as we migrated charge points over, always kind of keep providing extra value during the process. So that's why we started working on, we've got Sentinel now, which is automated tickets, creation and AI assistance in there. So we tried to develop that stuff early in the process. So as we're going through it, our stakeholders understood why we were going through it. Makes people engagement with it a lot better, and makes everyone happier and the process smoother.
And that's been a real key thing for advocacy across the business at all levels, in the board and right through to day-to-day users, that they can see that they can participate in its development, its design, its operation. And even now our CEO is daily on the platform because he's enjoying it's so intuitive to use, and also to hold us all to account in terms of a failed session, a failed charge point. So to see him engage with it that way, I think is testament to the technology itself.
Fantastic. Santi?
Yeah, I think if you look at the amount of data that we process on these new systems, you can maybe say it's one of the biggest migrations maybe. But I think from a technical perspective, it's great that we are taking ownership now for that data, so that the business can make decisions based on all that. But with more data comes more complexity. But I think that's another great thing to look at when you look at this kind of migrations. Taking ownership of your data, so you can do the right decisions based on that.
Yeah, just to add as well, I think on the point of the responding to feedback. So when we were launching these new features sort of midway through the project, we wanted to make sure that we could launch features based on feedback very quickly. So as soon as we went into that phase 1, we gave it to our operations team. We responded to feedback, developed features for them and how they work. And again, that just helps with the internal sales of the project, and makes it a lot easier.
Sure. Guys, I know that we are running out of time, so it was great to have you here. Nevertheless, I think it's important from Solidstudio side to also thank you everybody that was involved in the process. I think it wouldn't be possible to make this project as a success without great collaboration and partner-like approach to this. So thanks a lot. It was a pleasure having you guys here, or having me here actually. And to conclude, one open question from my side, just last one. Do you agree or not agree with the statement that to succeed in this ever-changing market, the CPOs will have to become software companies? Santi, what do you think?
And following up a little bit on what I was saying, I think it's really about the data as well. So again, take the right decisions rather than software is like a medium, right, for data. But I agree with that statement.
Ben?
Yeah, I'm very respectful I'm very proud of our own products. We manufacture in the UK, we've got 4 production lines, but we are seeing hardware commoditized very, very quickly. And I think the future battleground is in software, and really energy is the piece I'm very excited about.
Fantastic.
Yeah, 100%. I think also on the data point is the more you own your own data, understand the data, can build systems from that. Yeah, the more you can improve your key metrics like uptime, but as well as implement new innovative technology like flexibility services, smart charging, as you mentioned, Ben. So yeah, 100%.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what we've discussed today is only a part of what we do here at Connected Kerb and Solidstudio. If you want to check out more, please check out our websites.